Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Functional Nutrition Using Food as Medicine, presented by Joy Saudargas.
You got it.
Is that better?
Yes.
My name's Kate Roberts. I'm the Senior Director of Care Coordination with Friends Life Care. We're delighted that you're joining us for today for an exceptional presentation. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joy. She's a registered dietitian based in Delaware County. Joy provides customized advice, nutritional counseling, and has a diverse range of individuals with varying needs, including weight management, diabetes and prediabetes, clients struggling with disordered eating, women's health, and GI health. We're thrilled to have Joy back again with us today for Functional Nutrition. I'll turn it over to you, Joy.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and I can tell you a little bit more about me, and then we'll talk all about functional nutrition. Okay, let me make sure we can see this presentation. Play. Okay, excellent. So that is me, the Joy of Nutrition. I am the sole human being at the Joy of Nutrition. When you call, you talk to me. When you get counseled, you talk to me. I do have a biller and I do have an assistant that helps me once in a while, but mainly it's just me. So that's me in an Acme years ago when I used to do presentations there before I was all virtual. A few disclosures about me. I will recommend a few products later. I do have an ambassadorship with Pure Encapsulations. I just like people to know that. I loved their products before I became an ambassador. So just because I'm an ambassador does not mean, that's why I choose them. I was using them years before I became one of their ambassadors. I don't have any other paid sponsorships or ambassadorships. I don't get paid from people buying Pure Encapsulations products. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to text me or email me. So I always like to start out my presentations, and some people have heard this before, discussing the difference between an RD and a nutritionist. To get those letters behind my name, the MARD, LDN, and now IFNCP, just to become an RD, a registered dietitian, is a lot more than just calling yourself a nutritionist. It's kind of like the square with the rectangle type thing where every registered dietitian is a nutritionist, but not every nutritionist is a registered dietitian. Someone can just take a class and call themselves a nutritionist. They can sell shakes and call themselves a nutritionist. They can go and do some sort of certification and call themselves a nutritionist, and that's totally fine. But when you become a registered dietitian, you have to sit for boards. You have to continually take continuing education credits, and keep up to date with them. You are licensed by the state, you are watched over to make sure that you're HIPAA compliant and doing all the right things. And you have to finish quite lengthy college degrees, undergraduate, and now, as of last year, you have to have a master's degree to be a registered dietitian. On top of, you have to also do an unpaid internship for approximately 9 months, which is really fun when you're like 30 years old, like I was. So I was basically working 24 hours a day, and half of that was for free. So, to get where I am now, but you learn a lot more. You have a much more in-depth education than just calling yourself a nutritionist. Also, registered dietitians can take a health insurance where nutritionists cannot. So when I see my clients, I would say probably about 90% solidly pay little to nothing out of pocket to counsel with me. So how did I get here? I became an RD in 2011. Before that, I was a teacher. I went to Villanova for education in Spanish. In 2015, I finished my master's degree. I really wanted to work for myself. And one of my very best friends from grad school said, I understand that you want to work for yourself and, reinvent the wheel and all these great things that I wanted to do. But she said, I think you need to work in a hospital system first. And she wasn't wrong. So I worked in a hospital system. I realized very quickly that I did not want to be there. I do not like working in the ICU. I don't like trying to talk to people who can't talk back to me when they have tubes and they're intubated and all these things. Just not my speed. Definitely for my best friend from grad school, definitely not for me. In 2016, I started the Joy of Nutrition. I was working full time still and started to see my own clients on the side. Found out I was pregnant early 2017 when I started seeing clients. Our son was born later in 2017 in November, and basically said to my husband, I can't go back to work full time. I want to be the mom with this flexible schedule, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to work for myself. And I just kept going and never looked back. So this year will be what, like almost 9 years that the Joy of Nutrition has been born. Um, in my own practice, which is kind of why I'm here today to talk about functional nutrition, I started seeing a lot of the same things, and I was realizing that I was helping people, but I was already kind of helping them on a functional level, which is something we're going to chat about, where I like to know why. I like to get to the bottom of why things are happening. I don't like just people being on medication with like a big question mark of, I don't know, the doctor told me to take these drugs and I don't know for how long, or even if they're even really helping me anymore. And I love pulling people off of certain medications with the assistance of their doctor, of course, but I realized that there was so much more to me and my nutrition practice, and I really didn't like this idea of just putting Band-Aids on things, which is what we'll talk about more further in the presentation. So that was when I decided to look further into what I could learn, and that's when I found the Integrated Functional Nutrition Academy, IFNA for short, and they have this credential that gives me that IFNCP, which makes me a functional nutrition certified practitioner as of actually like 2 weeks ago. So the extra letters are behind my name. That was 2 years in the making, but it was definitely well worth it. Okay. Just a heads up for everybody. I like to tell everybody this. There are a lot of supplementation, exercise plans, exercise equipment on, the TikTok or Instagram and all these different things. I always tell people to please check with your doctor or a medical professional that you trust before starting any sort of supplement, new diet plan. You really don't want to just throw your body into this space where it has to adapt to a new thing without really trying to see if you're going to be okay. Being mindful of supplementation if you're pregnant, planning on getting pregnant, nursing, or if you have a compromised immune system, always be careful of that. Lately, I have heard a lot of people saying, I guess TikTok now has TikTok Shop or something, and they're selling supplements. So I'm just really, really wary of that. All of my recommendations that I do in my presentations are based on clients who are omnivores. You want to be a vegan, that's totally fine. But I find that my general public are omnivores and they eat meat and they eat eggs and vegetables and fruits and everything. Not all supplements and diets, are right for every body and everyone. So just making sure that you're mindful of that and what you think will fit into your life. So here we go. Let's talk about what is functional nutrition and why is it different from just regular nutrition. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about functional medicine, especially with a lot of the medical systems around us. Some private practices going concierge and all these different things. Functional nutrition is a different approach to food and nutrition and feeding based on an actual individual's needs. So all of my clients come to me with totally different things going on in their life, and I can't just say, okay, follow this meal plan and you're going to be okay. Because if I give out a meal plan for a, say, omnivore that has salmon on it and pork and chicken and beef, that's not going to fit for the client, who wants to be a vegan or who's really, thinking they might have concerns, ethically or whatever with eating meat. I totally support everyone, and it is definitely not a one size fits all approach. We get to the root cause, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, about what is happening in a client's body and work to create goals that are reachable for my clients on supplementation, lifestyle changes, food changes, even the manner in which you are eating your food, which we will explain a little bit later too, to try to ease different symptoms that people might have. And like we were saying earlier, I really do see a wide array of clients, from those folks who come to me who think they want to lose a little bit of weight or gain weight, and people who want to build more muscle, all the way to people who think they might have SIBO, like intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is pretty intense, or they went to their doctor and their doctor says, wow, you're pre-diabetic, better get control because you're going to go into being diabetic, et cetera, et cetera. We like to discover why things are happening, what patterns we can either stop or adapt to get them to a better place. And really my goal, whether it is my youngest client right now who is 5 or my oldest client who is 84, is I really just want everyone to live their longest, healthiest, happiest life that they can and understand why they're eating the things that they eat. I am very much a we have to build the foundation of the house dietitian before we can build the walls and the windows and the roof. Otherwise, everything is going to come toppling down. Not everybody loves that about me because I do take things very slowly in the beginning and broad goals, and then we narrow things down when symptoms start to subside or when you start to feel better or you realize, like, hey, I already went to step 2 and 3, even though you only gave me step 1. That's fantastic. That's great. So that's functional nutrition in a nutshell. These are just some factors that are related to nutrition needs that I don't know that everybody realizes. I mean, I will tell you, not many people realize that everyone needs a dietitian in one way, shape, or form at some point in their life. If you have blood work that comes back that looks iffy, that is absolutely a need for a dietitian. If you think that you have any sort of allergies, especially food allergies, that's a need for a dietitian. Family medical history, lifestyle, definitely. Hydration, we all know, folks who have been on my other calls, hydration is my life. Folks who have extra stressful lives, maybe they have nutritional nutrient deficiencies or insufficiencies, or they're not absorbing because they've had some sort of stomach gastric bypass or something like that. Definitely things a dietitian can dig into deeper, especially a functional dietitian, to see are the supplements that you're taking actually going to absorb correctly with the medical transitioning that you've had done to your stomach. Your current state of health, that can change on the daily. Sleep quality, presence of any chronic issues, do you have chronic pain? Do you have an autoimmune like RA, rheumatoid arthritis, or lupus, or anything like that? Activity level. We all know a lot of us are virtual. We are not moving as much. Maybe you're not moving because you have no energy and you have seasonal affective disorder and now you feel depressed. Those things cycle back to a dietitian. Food sensitivities, hormonal balance. We are going to talk a lot about cortisol today, and also blood sugar regulation, which is a big part of my life. So I thought it might be helpful to give you guys kind of like the bread and butter typical client that I see, and talk a little bit about things that were triggering on this write up for me and what we did to help this person. So this is an example of a functional nutrition client in my practice. She's 45. She has a very stressful lifestyle. She is a real estate agent trying to go off on her own, married, works full time. And if you guys know real estate agents, they also work weekends and nights. 3 kids, all in school. She goes with a grab and go type of diet during the day, meaning it's a protein bar in the morning, if she remembers, always coffee, of course. Lunch is, if a client brings her in lunch, she's eating Panera or Chipotle or something like that. And at dinner, she and her family have really worked hard to try to do the typical kind of like protein, carbohydrate, veggie sort of thing. So dinner, she wasn't too worried about. This is very typical of my clients. She has absolutely no time to go to the gym. She does her home workouts twice weekly. Her son plays baseball. Sometimes she tries to do a few loops around the field just to try to get in a little bit more movement. This is a big one for me. She has a poor sleep schedule, and she has from when her children were born. This has never gotten better. And this is very unfortunate because I think her oldest is like 10 and then like 6 and 4. So she's been having really poor sleep for a really, really long time. Some of her major past medical history and current medical history include reflux, anxiety, constipation, bloating, sometimes migraines, mainly triggered from sugar substitutes like aspartame and that kind of stuff. So she knows when she's going to get a migraine. She can usually prevent it. Also, days like today in Delaware County where it's overcast would definitely affect her migraines. So her doctor has her on omeprazole, and she's been on omeprazole for reflux for about 5 years, and she has her migraine meds as needed. She tried Lexapro for the anxiety depression. She didn't really like the side effects of it. She did gain like 15 pounds, came off of it, and lost some of the weight, so she really wasn't happy about it. So some of the things that we worked on, and I mean, first visit with me is usually about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. We really targeted the reflux because I don't always love drugs like omeprazole, especially for long periods of time. What we found out from her reflux was that she's constantly rushing when she's eating. She's eating very, very fast. And that is a major stressor on your body, not just in that it's not good for your brain, but it's also an issue with how you digest. And this is much more on a functional level, where when you are rushing food into your body and you are just chunking food down, your stomach is receiving whole pieces of chicken, whole pieces of salad, whole pieces of food that you have not chewed. Guess what? There is a world of bacteria and enzymes that begin in your saliva. And if you are bypassing that saliva, you are really causing a world of problems for the rest of your GI tract. Cue the constipation, cue the bloating, the diarrhea, the, oh, I just feel so full after I eat. I don't know why I eat this much. Then it's the food guilt. It's all of these things. So one of her main goals was, of course, we all know me, so it was drinking more water because she wasn't doing that either. But it was also slow down. Let's pick one meal a day where you actually sit, you take a bite of food and you put the sandwich down, or you take a bite and you put the fork down and you chew your food. You don't need to chew your food 85 times like Aunt Edna, but you can just give yourself more time. When you do that, the food is mixing with the saliva in your mouth, the bacteria, the enzymes going down your esophagus into your stomach, and your stomach is really happy because your stomach doesn't have teeth. It cannot chew your food. Yes, stomach acid will break food down, but it doesn't want full chunks of food coming down. It wants like lumpy mashed potatoes or chunky baby food is kind of what it wants the food to look like. So by working on that, by trying to incorporate a little bit more movement. Also, one thing I found out with this woman was that even though she was eating decent dinners, she was eating her dinners late. And she was trying to really focus on sleep because we knew she had a really poor sleep schedule, which I was really happy she was doing that. She was trying to work on going to bed a little bit earlier, but here was the problem. Sometimes she wasn't eating dinner until 8:30 at night, trying to go to bed at 10. That's not enough time. So we tried to get her eating a smidge earlier and still trying to keep the 10 o'clock bedtime to help to work on that reflux. After about months of working with this and slowing down and hydrating correctly and really working on things, she could have her omeprazole, and then eventually about a year later, she went completely off of it. So that's the light story of her. There's a whole lot more, but you could see how my brain works and how functional nutrition really fits in to help her that way. Talking about sleep hygiene, I know that was one of the topics that we wanted to chat about, and that was one thing this client was working on. Sleep hygiene is a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but it is all about your environment in which you sleep and your behaviors around sleep. Meaning, is your bedroom cool? Is it quiet? Do you have a giant TV in your room with light flashing at your eyes while you're sleeping right before you sleep? And is it noisy? Do you have children waking you up? Do you have a cat that wakes you up? All of these different things. Are you drinking coffee all day long? Are you drinking alcohol at night? All of these things can really disrupt sleep. It's advised that people put their electronics in another room. I know in the world we live in today, this isn't always easy. I mean, my phone stays in my room because it is also my alarm clock if I need it. However, I do put it on airplane mode to kind of like quiet the electronic noise in my room. And I don't have a television in my room, so I really, really try to keep the watching TV down to a minimum. Waiting before, at least 2 hours after a meal to go to sleep is a big deal. Doing some deep breathing, meditation, shutting it down, and realizing, which is a huge deal for my clients, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you cannot go fix the world's problems. Sure, you can write an email, but all that's doing is triggering your brain to wake up, dysregulating your cortisol levels, and it's kind of putting you in this really nasty sleep cycle that is completely altered. And that is not going to help with weight loss, mental health, all of the things. Now, listen, I know in a perfect world, everybody's like, well, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock p.m. and I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock a.m. That's not realistic for everyone. And I understand that. But I just tell people, if you notice that you are going to bed at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and you're saying to yourself, man, I really should go to bed earlier. I'm a night owl. I don't know. I just get sucked into the Netflix show or whatever it is. Just try to go to bed a half hour earlier for a week or two and see how you feel. Then maybe the next week you go to bed a little bit earlier, because if you're going to bed at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning and you have to wake up, say around 6:30, like I do, I would be an absolute zombie after doing that night after night after night. And I'm going to tell you, I would not be nice. I would be very mean. I would be eating a ton of junk and it would just be a really bad scene. So even just making small changes, like saying I'm going to try to go into my bed at midnight instead of 12:30 and maybe read for 20 minutes. That is a step in the right direction with good sleep hygiene. When we sleep better, these are some things that happen, and let me explain this to you. Our weight is under better control. Our mental health, our stress response, generally just better moods. We can accept things that happen to us during the day instead of feeling like this gorilla is weighing on our back. We have less cravings for things because listen, When you are well rested, your body is not seeking out external energy. It's not looking for the soft pretzels and the tasty cakes and the extra coffee and all these things that we need to make us feel like we're making it through our life on an okay level. Better blood sugars, greater immunity, 100%. Growth and development while we are shedding off dead cells. When we give our bodies time to rest, our bodies can function the way they need to function. Our liver can cleanse, our kidneys can process through toxins, our heart keeps beating, our lungs are breathing. All of these things are happening to help prevent chronic illnesses. Getting more rest is vital, and really trying to focus on sleep is a big deal. I've had clients who focus more on sleep, and one of the biggest things that they have noticed, not necessarily that the scale goes down, but one thing that they notice is that their bellies are flatter. And I know in a world where we are hyper stressed from noise pollution and air pollution and just life in general. I mean, we all have thousands of stressors every single day. When we are overstressed, it shows in our midsection. And it is a huge, huge thing to try to work on better sleep. So let's talk about inflammation, because I mention this a lot, and I think that people don't fully understand inflammation. And there are two different kinds of inflammation, generally speaking, chronic and acute. And if you stub your toe and it bleeds and it really hurts, and maybe you say a curse word or something, that is acute. It happens, it's going to heal. Our body is going, to send out these anti-inflammatory responses, and it's going to heal correctly. And in a few days, your toe is better. But chronic inflammation is much more serious. It can be, not always, it can be an endless cycle of just really feeling terrible. Your immune system in that case is compromised. It keeps sending these inflammatory responses with no help from anti-inflammatory compounds, because chances are your body is so exhausted and not getting the fuel, the rest, the hydration, all of the things that it needs. In this case, oftentimes you'll hear people, or maybe it's you yourself, say, I have this pain, but oh well, I'm just going to deal with it because I've had it for 3 years and I'm over it, and it hurts, and I've just kind of ignored it. Or your brain has actually learned to just deal with it, which is a really scary place to be. Stress, like I said, is just too much, and the everyday stress can weigh on us and can really help to cause chronic inflammation. A few signs of chronic inflammation could be things like fevers, brain fog, which is a big one, could be 100 other things too, but that could definitely be part of chronic inflammation. Frequent infections like rashes, yeast infections, cold sores, all of these types of things are signs of chronic inflammation. Anxiety, depression, just not feeling yourself. If your joints are painful and stiff, your muscles are painful, weak, stiff, weight gain, weight loss, changes in digestion are a big thing with inflammation, whether it is constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, all different types of things that my clients go through. So some foods to combat chronic inflammation. I mean, some of these are very obvious, right? Like we're always told to eat our fruits and vegetables, but there's actually a show on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's something about your gut. And one of the things that they talked about, it was very well written, by the way, definitely worth watching. I think it was called like Protect Your Gut or something about your gut microbiome. And it talked all about bacteria, which is super interesting to me. And they were talking about fruits and vegetables and also spices and herbs. And basically, what they were saying was if folks try to eat 20 different types of fruits and vegetables, spices and herbs, things like black pepper included, red pepper flakes, some basic things that maybe a lot of us already use, you are helping to feed your gut microbiome in such a diverse way that your gut microbiome is going to flourish and really, really be happy. So think about this. If you're eating a salad, and you have, I don't know, romaine lettuce on there, and then you add onions, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers. Maybe you add some spices and some herbs to it. Maybe you add a little bit of parsley or mint or something. You're already looking at 6 or 7 different veggies and fruits, right? And herbs and spices right there. So your gut is really going to thank you. Other things like cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower have something called sulforaphane in them, which is a huge deal for me because I like to teach people to try to fight illnesses that can be really dangerous to them, like cancer, diabetes, these types of things. So sulforaphane is 100% shown to help fight off cancer causing issues. So if you can eat your broccoli, if you can eat cauliflower, if you can eat broccoli sprouts, all of those things have sulforaphane in them, and they are very, very good for you. Things like fatty fish, dark chocolate, green tea, olive oil, nuts, seeds. You'll see here it's mostly the whole foods and less of the processed foods. Now, I am by no means going to tell you that all processed foods are bad for you. If you eat protein bars, they are processed foods. I had one for breakfast this morning. If you eat protein shake mix and whey protein, it is a processed food. Cheeses are processed foods. There are a lot of foods that are processed foods that are not McDonald's and the things that people really target bad processed foods as. You have to just do your homework, talk to a dietitian, really think about it and try to see what's best for you. So I'm sure folks have heard about cortisol. Um, Cortisol is really important, and cortisol is our primary stress hormone. When cortisol levels are elevated, we do not feel well. And this ties into that whole exhaustion, stress, inflammation feeling. When we do not feel well, people have poor sleep. They might be more anxious. They have chronic inflammation. They have the aches and the pains. They have that gorilla on their back, like I talked about, that feeling of like, oh, I can't get through this and I don't know why. Cortisol keeps weight on us, and cortisol keeps weight on our midsection, right where most folks do not want weight to keep. And a big part of that is not just because it doesn't look nice in a dress, but it's also because when weight is kept on our midsection, a lot of that is visceral fat. It's the fat that is surrounding our organs that's making it difficult for our organs to communicate with each other. Cue the issues like diabetes, all sorts of issues with insulin response and different things that age us faster. It's really not a good thing. When you constantly feel like you have that fight or flight response, that is your cortisol working for you. And cortisol is important. I don't want people to think that, cortisol is always bad. If a tiger is chasing you, you need cortisol. You need cortisol to spike, and you need cortisol to help your organs to get blood to where it needs to go so that you can run fast. The problem is that we're not usually chased by tigers. I know I'm not in Delaware County anyway. So we're not usually chased by tigers, but if you have a boss who is always nagging on you, or you have a coworker that just is incessantly annoying all the time, these things can still trigger this fight or flight response in our body and elevate our cortisol, which then just tumbles into the rest of your life. And it can affect your relationship with your significant other and your family and your children. And you might notice that you're more snappy, and you just don't have the patience. On top of, high cortisol can cause high blood pressure, blood sugar issues. It can cause you to feel more fatigued. It can also weaken your bones and disrupt your sleep. All of these things that we don't want, right? And cause cravings. Poor sleep, it's going to tie right in to cause the cravings that happen. So monitoring cortisol is definitely important. Feeling that feeling of the weight on your back and always being in that like fight or flight, fight or flight. I have to make a quick decision. It's okay once in a while. It's not okay all the time. And remembering that it's okay to take a break is one way to lower cortisol. Folks always ask me, how can I know if my cortisol is high? Well, if you feel a certain way, chances are your cortisol is high, but your doctor can also write you a script to get your cortisol tested. And if your cortisol is high, there are ways that you can lower it. There are supplements that you can take and different things like that to lower the cortisol. Stress regulation is a big thing for me. Our sympathetic nervous system is the one that is responding to danger. It's tied in with that cortisol. Again, is it a tiger or is it a terrible boss? Either way, our sympathetic nervous system is affecting our digestion, our heart rate, our pupils, and our breathing. All of these things, if you were in serious danger, your digestion would need to slow down. Your heart rate would speed up, your pupils would dilate, and your breathing would become more like that kind of fast breathing, because your body needs to get out fast. It's in danger. It needs to get out. Unfortunately, our body doesn't know the difference, like I said, between a tiger chasing us or just really high stress on the day to day. That's where the parasympathetic nervous system comes in. And I always joke and say it's a warm blanket for the sympathetic nervous system. And it's really not a joke because it kind of is. Your parasympathetic nervous system calms and takes over after your sympathetic nervous system is wound up and feeling in danger. The main part of our parasympathetic nervous system is our vagus nerve. And I really liked this picture that I posted on here because I know a lot of people, myself included, who are clenchers at night, and I have to wear a bite plate because of it. And your vagus nerve is about 75% of your parasympathetic nervous system. So if your vagus nerve is triggered and unstimulated when your sympathetic nervous system is overstimulated, it is touching your vital organs. You can see the yellow line right there going through your lungs, your heart, your kidneys, your stomach. All of these organs are affected by that one large nerve. That's a big pill to swallow. So if that nerve is just laying still and not stimulated to calm the sympathetic nervous system, all of those organs are affected. You're really going to feel pretty crummy. And that's why a lot of folks, when they feel stressed, they feel it in their stomach. They have diarrhea, they have constipation, their digestion is 100% affected. Because if that vagus nerve is not stimulated, then that is leading to digestion still being slower, the heart rate being faster, the pupils dilating, the breathing patterns being off. And it's very, very important after you have a stressful situation or any sort of trauma in your life, whether it's a surgery or someone you love dies or your pet is sick. I mean, trauma is a very broad word. When you have a trauma that stimulates that sympathetic nervous system, it's time to rest and regroup. And for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you might have seen on my stories where I was talking about this head cold that I had, and I consider a really bad head cold trauma to my body, and it took me a very long time to get over it. Thank you to my husband and son who work and go to school in schools and probably brought this bad bug home, and it's life. But it took me a while to realize, like, I am tired. I need to go to bed at 8 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. Like, my body needs rest. My parasympathetic nervous system needs to do its job and calm my body down from this quote trauma that it felt bad. It just felt bad. So, how do we stimulate that vagus nerve? Now, I will tell you that stimulating the vagus nerve, good news is it's easier than you think. Cool water is one of the best ways to stimulate your vagus nerve. So, if you feel that my heart rate is up, I'm feeling like I need to take deep breaths, but I can't. If you can go into the bathroom, which is pretty much anywhere we go in the world, right? And just put your hands under cool water for 3 or 4 minutes, let the cool water run on your hands. That is helping to stimulate your vagus nerve. If you have to give a big presentation, or your boss wants to talk to you about something, or you're just really, I don't know, woke up and just feel overstimulated about things, running cool water over your hands is a big deal. For those of you that have children, I know that you've heard this old wives kind of thing. They always say when a baby is over cranky, overstimulated, put them in a tub of cool water. This is why, because it's stimulating their vagus nerve and it's physically calming their body. Taking deep breaths. I always say, like, smell the flowers, blow out the candles, like in through the nose, out through the mouth, going outside for a bit, putting your feet in the grass, putting your feet in sand, just relaxing, closing your eyes, some visualizations, visualizing a beach, a forest, listening to praying, doing mantras. I really love Louise Hay. She's amazing. She has some of the best mantras I've ever read. Meditating, easier said than done for some folks, and even getting a therapist. Maybe there are things that are triggering you from your past that you need to work through and you need to revisit to calm yourself and to get yourself to a better place. Let me go back to that. So when we calm ourselves, when we stimulate our vagus nerve and we let our parasympathetic nervous system work, you will realize that situations that might have triggered you before, now you have the tricks of the trade to kind of get those things calming. And this is one of the tips I tell people all the time. You have to notice when things are starting to bother you and not ignore them for weeks and weeks and months and years. It's very important to kind of nip it in the bud when it happens. So that's something. I'm sure there'll be questions about this at the end of the presentation. Vitamin D3, and I put in parentheses there K2. I'm kind of jumping right into the supplementation, but without vitamin D3, a lot of people's bodies are stressed. I think that folks think of vitamin D3 maybe a little bit differently now because it's been in the news quite a bit. But vitamin D3 is more than just milk. It's more than just bone health. Vitamin D3, especially in my functional education, is so much more to me than it ever was. I've known that vitamin D3 helps with mood. It helps with depression. It helps with that SAD, seasonal affective disorder. When our vitamin D levels are low, my clients are definitely more depressed. And speaking from I guess like a clinical standpoint, if you get your hydroxy 25 vitamin D tested, which if you're just getting regular blood work, chances are you're not getting it done. Maybe 1 out of every 10 doctors will. But if a doctor does your vitamin D level and you see that your level is at 30, they will tell you you're good. I will tell you you're okay. If you are below 30, you're in the ditches, baby, and we need to get that number up. And if you are closer to 50, that's where I really want my clients to be, myself included. When vitamin D levels are lower, depression 100% is lurking. And I've had many clients who have been on antidepressants before they had their vitamin D tested, get the vitamin D tested, and they know that they need high doses of vitamin D. When I know a client's levels, I have no problem giving large doses of vitamin D3 to my clients. When this happens, we get better sleep. Testosterone is regulated, which I know a lot of men are dealing with low T. That's a big thing. If you watch any type of, ABC, NBC type of shows, you will see commercials for low testosterone all over the place. Folks have better insulin sensitivity, meaning that we are fighting against that diabetes, which nobody wants, right? Our insulin is doing its job. We're more sensitive. Our food is getting digested correctly, and the carbohydrates are getting put into our cells for energy. We also have higher energy levels. If you feel less depressed, you're probably more in tune to go outside for a walk and get some exercise, which then stimulates our mitochondria and gets us just feeling better. Um, Anti-cancer, there is a fact, and I don't have it on this presentation, but one of the men that I listened to on one of my modules in functional nutrition said if your hydroxy 25 vitamin D3 blood level is 50 or above, you are cutting your cancer risk, I believe he said by 50%, especially some of the heavy hitters, breast, colon, lung cancer. I'm on board for that, those types of things. And vitamin D3 also helps with immunity. Now, I will tell you, taking vitamin D3 by itself is great, but taking it with vitamin K2 is even better. And I'm going to explain to you why. Vitamin K2 is kind of the magic bullet for D3 and calcium. That Pure Encapsulations is actually the product that I take personally. Vitamin K2 is, in my opinion, the most underrated supplement out there right now. It's getting more traction, but it's definitely something to watch out for. What vitamin K2 does in our body is it goes into our soft tissues, our heart, our arteries, our muscles, all of the places where we don't want calcification to happen. I don't know about you, but I want my arteries to be nice and soft and supple and not calcified at 45 years old. Vitamin K2 is helping to pull that calcification out, bind with the vitamin D3, with the calcium, get it into our bones and our teeth, which is where we really want it to go. Adults should aim for about 90 to 120 micrograms of vitamin K2 daily. You can see the product at the bottom there. That this is one of the reasons I love this product is because 4,000 IUs of vitamin D3 it's a decent dose. I mean, if your blood level is like 75 or something, we could definitely talk about a lesser dose, but I like that it has the 100 micrograms of the vitamin K2. It's shown that taking 32 micrograms of K2 daily lowers your heart disease risk by 50%, which is pretty significant. Another fave that I love, that I will probably take until the day I die is magnesium glycinate. I will tell you right now, I don't recommend a lot of supplements to my clients unless I've taken them myself or I have other friends or family or clients who have maybe taken them, unless it's something that doesn't pertain to my own health. But a lot of the supplements that I recommend are ones that I've tried. I have tried multiple times to come off of magnesium glycinate. I mean, I'm a mom, I own a business, I have, a busy life. I have a lot of things that I do and garden and exercise and do all these things that can really, stress you out in a good way, right? Not all stress is bad. So, magnesium glycinate is a product that I have been taking for probably 6 years now. And it really helps to calm your mind. It regulates blood pressure. It supports your bones and your dental health, calms anxiety. And, it's interesting because I think that people think of supplements sometimes as things that they take for a short period of time and then they don't need them anymore, myself included. I've tried to come off of this, but I will tell you right now, probably 75% of my client base takes some sort of magnesium, mostly magnesium glycinate, because it doesn't bother your stomach the way that others do. And these are just some trigger points for magnesium glycinate. If you drink coffee, you need magnesium glycinate. If you have poor sleep schedules, you need magnesium glycinate. Drink alcohol, even one drink, you need it. If you have a lot of stress in your life, whether it's happy stress or annoying, dangerous stress, you need magnesium. If you don't eat 20 fruits and veggies and spices and things every single week, you probably need magnesium. All of these things are, especially the alcohol and the poor sleep and the caffeine, are pulling magnesium out of our bloodstream. So I always say, if I know it's going to be a bachelorette weekend, or if I know it's going to be a time when maybe a little bit more alcohol is happening, I am definitely making sure my magnesium is on point because I want my stores to be up higher. So that way, when the alcohol comes, I don't feel low, low, low. It's a big thing with folks who drink coffee, especially more than like that one, like 12-ounce cup a day. It's a big deal that you get magnesium in because it is pulling magnesium out of your bloodstream. So there are lots of types of magnesium. There's taurate, citrate, malate, oxide, L-threonate, which is a big one lately that's been in the news. Sulfate, which is also known as Epsom salt. I always tell people to be very cautious with, again, taking whatever they see online because these all do different things, right? Like magnesium taurate is great for blood pressure. Magnesium malate is great for folks who might have something like interstitial cystitis with their bladder. It's good for the soft tissue, the smooth muscles. Citrate, I always say proceed with caution because that is the one that will clear you out if you are constipated. Some folks can tolerate a small little bit of it, but if folks already have diarrhea as a chronic thing going on with them, we absolutely are not taking citrate because it's only going to make it worse. And the L-threonate has been a newer, not, it's not a newer product, but it's been more in the news. There is some link between that and possible Alzheimer's prevention. Again, if you're interested in these things, you can always ask me. I personally take the magnesium glycinate, and I recommend that pretty safely to most of my clients because it does not cause a lot of the digestive things going on. I take it generally for that feeling of overwhelm that is then put under control when I take the magnesium. I also take magnesium taurate sometimes just because it is good for blood pressure, and blood pressure goes up as we age. It can be a problem. So, you know me, I'm the water lady. I couldn't forget to talk about my favorite thing in the world, water. And just to let everyone know, folks who may not have been on my call before, the average adult loses about 80 ounces of fluid a day. And those of you who have been on my call before know that that's mainly just from breathing and speaking. Well, I am speaking all day long, so I am losing a lot of water. And it is very, very important that while you're working on your sleep routine and while you're, resting your body, you realize that you're also breathing. So when you wake up in the morning, you are already borderline dehydrated, and it is a must that you try to get water in first thing in the morning. Now, I'm not saying you have to drink like 20 ounces or something like that, but even if you can get 8 ounces of water in before coffee, before smoothies, before teas, before anything, if you are an intermittent faster, you can drink water. So really trying to do that. Some things that my clients notice when they are better hydrated: they just feel less stressed. They feel like they can rest better. They feel like they have more energy. They notice that cravings are down. They feel that their skin is softer and their mouth is not dry and their lips aren't as chapped. They have less headaches. They have less migraines. They just feel like they can approach the day in a better way. It's very, very, very important. I don't need to talk much more about water because I'm crazy for it. So here in a little nutshell are things that you can do to live longer. Prioritize sleep, move your body, and I will say this until the day I die. Even a little bit of walking is better than no walking and sitting on your couch. So if all that you have time for is 10 minutes to walk around your block, then by all means, take the 10 minutes and go walk around your block. Rest when you are sick. If you do not feel well, rest your body. Your body is trying to do a very big thing. It is trying to keep you alive from an illness that is invading your body at the moment. Your body needs rest, it needs fluids, and it needs respect. You need to take a day off from work and just veg on the couch and relax. Getting your vitamin levels tested, getting your routine blood work. When I have that information, that is like the golden ticket for me because not only can I see you from the outside, but now I see what's going on the inside. Hydrate, smiley face, best thing in the world. Find ways to manage your stress. Find people who you trust to talk to or journal or do whatever it is that will help you to manage your stress. Spending time with those you love, telling them that you love them, and making sure that if you just need to take time for yourself, you do it. I know sometimes as a busy mom, this is easier said than done for some of us, but it is really, really important to give yourself that 5 minutes to just breathe and to really take your time and relax. Okay, that's me in a nutshell. I wanted to leave at least 10 minutes for questions, and I pretty much gave us 11 minutes for questions. So let me hit exit here, and I can stop sharing, and then you'll see me chit-chatting. Okay, stop share. Did that work?
It
Okay,
did.
we're back.
Joy,
We're
I
back,
can read
we're
off.
back in action.
I can read off a couple of the questions that have come in. Thank you for your presentation. When you mentioned the 20 different vegetables and fruits, is that per day?
No, I wish it was, but no, it's per week. It's per week.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, it's per week. And you know, it's interesting because like when you think about it, it could be herbs, it could be a lot of different things. Chances are most of my clients probably are already eat between 10 and 15, but I just kind of liked that number at being 20 to really try to like up the bar a little bit. And the show was really great.
I
Um,
think, was that Hack Your Health?
I think it was called Hack Your Health. Yes.
I heard about
Yes.
it from a colleague and I
It
did,
was out a little while ago, like
yeah, it was
maybe a
good.
year or two ago. Yeah.
It was motivating. So I would agree. I would recommend that one.
And
Second,
I see the question. I'm actually putting it here so people have it.
okay, great.
The woman who I love for mantras, her name is Louise Hay. And she is, oh, hold on, send. There we go. Her name is Louise Hay, and she's dead now, but she had a really fantastic story in that she went through some pretty significant abuse as a child. She made it through cancer, all of these different things. And I just love how her stuff is broken down. You can hear her on YouTube. You can also buy her CDs or I'm sure it's all online now, her books. But when I was in graduate school, you know, money was a thing, stress was a thing, realizing like who am I right now was a thing. Like I don't even know myself. I'm just going to school and working and going to school and working and trying to have a new relationship and all these things. And she just has so many good mantras, like things I even say now, you know, like I pay my bills with love, money always comes back to me. Like every time I say that, I'm paying a bill. Every time. I'm like it's just stuck in my head. And she's got great stuff. Um as for Sue, the pure encapsulation K2 and the supplement K2 as MK7. That one I'm gonna have to look up and I can get back to you on. I don't know if that was, and Sue, if you're still on, is MK7 something that you take by itself? Let me just see here. Pure encapsulations. I mean, if it is in there, that's great. I can look that up for you. MK7. Um, hmm. Maybe it's a Synergy K. It's probably in there. Yeah, there is K2 in there. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. The answer is yes to that.
Thank you.
Yes. And then next, what is the recommended daily dose of magnesium glycinate? Um, a good a good starter. Oh, I see, Sue. I'm looking right here. Yeah, there's MK4 and there's also MK7. I can show you the one that I take, and I'm sure it's on there. Let me just see, and then I will answer the other question. Vitamin D3 with K2. There are a few different kinds. Here we go. I wonder if this will show it to me on the back. I can find that. As I'm doing that, I can still talk. So the recommended dose of magnesium glycinate, I usually tell, generally speaking, a good starter dose would be somewhere around like 360 milligrams. And the reason that I say that is because that would be if you get magnesium glycinate from pure encapsulations, it's about 120 milligrams per capsule. And I feel that people do well with 360 milligrams as a start. Now, if you know that you are going to go into a more stressful situation, like maybe you're changing a job or you're getting divorced or someone died or something like that, you can actually take more than that. There is a book that I really like called, I think it's called The Encyclopedia for Natural Cures. It's a really, really big book. And I've read through that plenty of times for different ailments and things that that clients have been going through. And there are quite a few doctors and practitioners in that book that will recommend upwards of like 1,500 milligrams. So I feel fine knowing that my clients are taking somewhere around 400, 500, maybe a little more. You know, if you know that you're going on vacation and maybe you'll drink more alcohol and things like that, you might want to take a little bit more magnesium because it will cause, you know, a little bit more anxiety and feelings. So,
Joy, would that be then take the lower dose of 360 milligrams kind of on the daily and
yeah.
then increase as needed? Is that what I'm hearing from
Yes.
you? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And to the MK7 question, yes, the vitamin D3 with the K2 that I take is the MK7.
And then I had one other question come through for folks joining us. You're allowed, we have another moment. If you want to get your question answered, please feel free to put it in that Q&A. I had one question come over in advance, Joy.
Sure.
And it is, what are your thoughts on the effectiveness and challenges of the Prinkett diet for cardiovascular disease? I find the salt restriction extremely demotivating to implement and also have difficulty eating only one chicken meal a week, fish or low, no salt options when eating out.
They said Prinkett, right?
Prinkett, yes. Oh, sorry, Pritkin,
Oh, oh my
Pritkin.
gosh, this plan is like so old and out. I mean, like
Making a resurgence.
this is really, really funny because somebody just talked to me about this week. And it's just really, really interesting to me. Listen, sodium, I understand the reasoning behind it. This is kind of a loaded question. I'm going to try to keep this like as focused as I can here. If your kidneys are functioning correctly, if you are well hydrated, your kidneys are going to process out sodium. And I don't fully understand why they would want you to eat just one chicken meal a week when things like lean chicken breast are a really great source of protein. And for folks who might have been on my call last time, I'm all about blood sugar control. And without good protein, I mean upwards of like 100 to 150 grams a day or more, you're not going to have good blood sugar without enough protein. You're just going to constantly have blood sugar spikes all day long. I don't know that, you know, the Pritikin thing is definitely the way to go.
So maybe check in with your primary care and talk to a
Yeah.
nutritionist and talk to a dietitian, I should say, to
Yeah. Yeah. I
a
mean,
little bit more personalized
this seems
restriction.
really, really, really restrictive.
Mhm.
And I know that, listen, I think the foods that they are eating, because I did look through this meal plan with a client, actually just that last week, and I did look through this meal plan with a client, and I think the foods themselves are healthy foods. I mean, it's all whole foods, right? But I just feel like the restriction leads to I shouldn't, which then leads to like more stress around food, which then leads to food guilt. And if you are go to a birthday party and you know you really want to have like these amazing cupcakes and you just have one, you're not eating six.
Mhm.
You know, it's all about balance. Maybe on like, you know, a normal day it might be okay, but you can't expect that to be forever and ever and ever is the bottom line for me.
Thank you, Joy.
Yeah,
We did not have any additional questions come in, so it looks like you've covered everything. Thank you so much for your presentation today.
sure.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time today to attend. It was oh, sorry, I lied. There's one question where, Bonnie, if you want to go ahead and put your question in the Q&A, we will read it out. I'll give you a moment. While Bonnie is typing, I will let our folks know that we do have additional Vigor events coming up on Thursday, April 10th. At 1:30, we have end-of-life doula Morgan Everett is presenting on being there, how to support a friend or neighbor at the end of life. That will be at the Lower Makefield Township Community Center. And also on May 13th from 10:30 to 1:30 in the afternoon. We'll be hosting the Beacon Hill Friends House staff from Boston as they present vocational discernment at the FLC office in Bluebell. You can find more information on our e-newsletter or on our website for more information. Bonnie, I'm gonna say I haven't seen your question come through. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay, one quick question from Joan. What about prescription protein bars? The ingredients
RX.
are
They're,
all.
they're called RX. Yeah, I'm totally fine with them. Totally fine. All good ingredients. Again, they fall into that, they're a processed food, but they're also super nutritious, right? You can read everything. You can see the ingredients, you know what they are, you're not tripping over yourself when you're trying to look at the ingredients. The main things I look at in a protein bar are I know most of the ingredients and it does not have sucralose or aspartame, which are basically Splenda and Sweet and Low. Not good for your gut. So if I can see those things, if I can see those things not being on a protein bar, I'm pretty happy. So yeah, RX bars are great.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're getting some thank yous for today.
Welcome.
So I will send out the presentation later today. Thank you so much, Joy. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you for having me. I always love coming to see you guys. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.